Hey everyone, we just want to welcome you to our LinkedIn Live event today. We are glad you are here. We're really excited to be talking to industry influencers, Brie McDaniel and Underwood-Zach with Title Insurance Consultants. Hi ladies.
Good morning, Janis. Thanks so much for having us.
We're glad you are here. Just a reminder that this session is being recorded. This recording is the exclusive property of Real Estate Closing Path. All video files and commentary shared during this session belong to RECP and may be used in future trainings or marketing promotions. Our intention is to represent you and RECP in the very best light. And in case you're new here and you're maybe the first time listening in to one of our LinkedIn Lives, we are the third branch in a suite of organizations owned by one woman, Marianne Harris. She started in the industry almost 25 years ago, offering third-party escrow account reconciliation services through Positively Balanced. And then in 2020, she launched Positively Closed, which provides remote closing support solutions. And then we are Real Estate Closing Path, and we offer training in all aspects of the closing process. We invite you to follow us on social media, wherever you like to network professionally. You can find us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, or Instagram at Real Estate Closing Path. And then this slide here shows all the different workshops that we currently offer, everything from pre-closing prep, polishing off post-closing, lender basics, the ABCs of deeds, title commitment anatomy, et cetera, et cetera. All of these can be offered as lunch and learns in your location. And then all of our workshops are CE and CLE approved in both Georgia and Florida, and we will be working on expanding to other states in the near future. I am Janis. I'm the executive director here at RECP. While I have never been a closer, my background is in education, and I was brought on board to help provide some structure around establishing the school and some curriculum development. I help with networking, and again, we've been working on the accreditations in the past couple of years, and that's been a big accomplishment for us. Again, I really enjoyed kind of transitioning. For me, it was a midlife career change, and I've enjoyed kind of being involved in teaching and training. But I like to say I'm glad I don't have to grade papers anymore. And then our guest speakers today, again, I just want to introduce both Kay and Brie. I'll start with you, Brie, if you would go ahead and say hello and maybe tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again for having us here today. We are excited to do this with you, so we appreciate the opportunity. I'm Brie McDaniel. I've been in the industry coming up on 30 years. I joke and tell everybody when I started on a typewriter. So definitely have seen the changes in the industry with technology and everything, but I've sat the seat start to finish, done all aspects of title, whether it was order entry to curative processing, post-closing, policy recording, funding, you name it. And was lucky enough through actually consulting to meet Kay. So Kay, I'll kick it over to you to give a little bit of your background.
Yeah, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, Kay Underwood. I've been in the business just over 30 years. I'm slightly older than Brie, but we won't talk about that. And worked, again, all seats, as Brie said. I worked for 20 years for an underwriter on their direct operations agency side. So that was the bulk of my experience, but sat every seat in that organization. And then about 10, this year will be 10 years that went out and started consulting around the country for title companies and operations. So sat every seat, worked on most of the title production softwares, and just really gotten a wide breadth of knowledge.
Wow, that's really interesting. And so my next question is, how did you two form your partnership? Tell me a little bit more about how you met and how Title Insurance Consultants came to be. And I'll go back to you, Ken.
So Brie and I met. Oh, okay. I'll go ahead and take that. Brie and I actually met at a consultant at a gig at a client. who brought us both on to kind of do different things. He was looking to sell his agency and needed to, get things buttoned up, and also needed a lot of work on his title production software. So Brie took the title production software piece because it was her specialty. That particular is Resware, and I took the people piece. And so we worked together for on and off for about 18 months to get him all squared away and set to go.
And then Bree, do you want to add to that? And how long ago was this? How many years ago?
So this was, we both went out in 2015 on our own. I had retired from title, really thinking that I was done, but you guys know title's a black hole, and once you get in, you can't get out. And so word had gotten out on the street that I wasn't working full time, and I had people calling, saying, hey, can you help us with this? Can you help us with that? And it was through that I met Kay, and really, Tycon came together because our skill sets really complemented each other. I was very familiar with everything east of the Mississippi. She was very familiar with everything west of the Mississippi. So like she said, she had agency side, I had direct. So it was just, it was different. We had skill sets, and really, it was funny when we first started, we really didn't overlap each other because we had, again, like I said, the jurisdictional aspects of it, and her, really, her strong suit with technology was SoftPro and Qualia, and mine was Resware and Qualia. So we had a little bit of the, different technology styles. We've worked on both and done a lot with each, but it really made sense. And it was just kind of nice having been by ourselves and doing some gigs. It was nice to actually come together and have somebody to, bounce ideas off of and have a collaborative space. I think we really enhanced each other. That way we joke a lot of times, two people, one brain, and have a tendency to finish each other's sentences. So
yeah, that really does make for a great partnership when, you have enough differences in your skill set, but then enough commonality in your maybe goals or vision or personality that it makes for a good fit. So it really does sound like the best of both worlds kind of merging together in this perfect partnership. So that's exciting to hear about. I do have another question. How have you managed understanding like the nuances in different states? When you mentioned East Coast and West Coast, not every state handles closings the same way. And, how have you learned to manage that in your organization? And I'll let Brie, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I think we've been really lucky. Like I said, I grew up in title in the Maryland, DC, Virginia area. And so we are definitely in this area, the 13 original colonies, as I like to say. We like to do things the old way. We don't like to change. I can still handwrite my land records, and I'm going to walk those documents through recording, and, learning each state was interesting. And I think Kay and I both were really fortunate to work with some great clients who were able to teach us those nuances in states that we didn't know, like understanding more, about Florida or New Jersey, where North Jersey is a little different than South Jersey. And just, it was easy for us because we had the background in title. We understood what everybody was doing. It was just, we needed those state specific pieces of, okay, are you ordering a commitment, or do you do a prelim? And what do you call this document? And how do you handle that? And so we've really, really been fortunate to have great clients that have been patient with us when we weren't familiar. And now I think, Kay, what are we, all 40 states at this point? I think we've done something in every state except for Iowa.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And as Bree said, she grew up in the, in that mid-Atlantic 13 original colonies, Lord help us, area. And I grew up out west. And so, I've got, Colorado, Arizona, Utah, Nevada, again, California, North and South can't do it the same way, right? But we've had those differences and had clients. And I'll also say, we were honest with the clients. In fact, I just had one not long ago in West Virginia. And about the third thing out of my mouth when he called me was, I'll be honest, I haven't worked in West Virginia yet. So there's a few things that I need you to tell me, but everybody's been really great about helping us with those jurisdictional differences. And then we're off and running.
That's great. We also run into that in our school of different nuances of teaching in different states. And we like to use a car analogy. And we say, as long as you know how to drive, you can learn to drive any car, but every car is a little bit different, right? Where all those bells and whistles are, it takes a minute to learn those specific unique things to each car or each state or each software, right? Whatever the case may be. But as long as we understand the foundational concepts, then everybody can get on board and still track and get through the same closing process.
Yeah, I actually really like that analogy, Janis. I haven't heard that before. So don't be shocked if you hear that again, because Kay
there you go.
and
You're
I might
welcome
steal
to use
it. But I think that is very true. I mean, in title, we all do the same thing, right? There's the same sort of 6, 7 steps of, you've got to order a file, and then you have search, you have curative, you have, closing, then you've got recording, funding, policy, all of those kind of things. It's just, North Carolina, we're going to record and then we're going to disperse, it's those little things. So like you said, I think that car analogy is perfect. If you can handle those 6 steps, as long as you're flexible to, put in the jurisdictional specific pieces, you definitely can do title anywhere.
Good. Well, we've had to come up with as we've had to teach and train some newbies and help them understand the process. We've tried to come up with a few things. And you know what? That was probably to help me. Again, I had never been a closer. And, so it's taken a lot for me to really grasp all the different, tasks and responsibilities that go on. I never knew. So I have another question. If someone was brand new to title insurance consultants and they had no idea of who you are or what you do, Kay, how would you kind of summarize the services that you offer? What do y'all really do?
So I always start out with that we are operational consultants. So we consult in anything that's operational. There are plenty of great sales and marketing consultants out there. We don't generally dabble in that area. It's not our lane. Our lane is operational. So a lot of times it is around the title production software. Either somebody wants to switch, or they're trying to decide which one to go with, or they know that they're only using 10% or 20% of the functionality and they want to use the rest. So a lot of times it is around the title production software. We've done everything from assisting startups to M&A, valuation, due diligence. But again, a lot of it usually comes back to the software. And many times they'll bring us in for one particular reason, and then we get in, they realize we can help with much more, and we're kind of off to the races.
That's great. Does most of your business come through word of mouth marketing? Is it on LinkedIn? Like, where do you find that people are finding you? Brie, what would you say?
Typically for us, it's really been word of mouth. We've been really, really fortunate that, either through a vendor or another client, we'll get an introduction to somebody that they see is, struggling and could use some help. Or, even the software vendors have recommended us and saying, look, we know, you haven't completely optimized your software. You may want to think about talking to Brie or Kay and having a conversation with them. I think, for us, it's been from the technology side, we want to make sure that you're getting everything that you pay for to be as optimized, as efficient, compliant, and profitable as possible. And since we've done the job and we've sat the seat as both an end user, a manager, an owner, we understand that it's, each person has a little different perspective, and the things that we need to do, differ on who we're looking at, right? Which lens we're looking at it through. And so I think that's one of the things where Kay and I have been really lucky to set ourselves apart from other consultants that are out there, because we do get buy-in from all of those people very quickly, because we understand all 3 perspectives. We understand their pain points, and we're trying to make it easier for everybody. So not only do we want, the manager to be happy and have the transparency that they need to see that work's getting done, but we want the end user to get there in the, quickest, fastest possible way with the least amount of clicks and make their life easier, because we know it's coming fast and furious, and they don't have a lot of time. So I would say, like Kay said, we've done multiple different things, but typically it's technology and operations that we stick with.
That's good. I can relate to, being resistant to change. When we started our school, everything was in person, and then we quickly switched to everything being virtual and online. And, that was a game changer. So processes change. It pulls on a different skill set, and not everyone is, always on board with that, but it's usually worth it in the end, right? Getting them to that other side where they can be more efficient and be
For
more
sure.
successful in their job. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, so speaking of change, and Kay, I'm going to come back to you with this one. What are some of the biggest changes you've seen in the industry throughout your career?
Wow. It's been a minute, 32 years, it's a lot. But I think the single biggest catalyst for change in the industry in the last, 30 years has been, COVID. Nobody wants to admit it, but it's true. And it really sort of forced the industry to accept the fact that a lot of what we do can be done remotely. It doesn't have to be the big offices with, the 30 people running around and everything in person. It forced the industry to accept what was going on in other industries long before, that a lot of the pieces can be done in a remote fashion. Unfortunately, it made everybody, deal with it quickly. And when that happens, we all just kind of figure it out and then clean up the mess later. But I think it forced technology to advance. It forced us to just operationally to accept the changes that were available to us.
Yeah, so true. The work environment changed, being able to build professional networks in different platforms certainly all changed. Yeah, agree. How about you, Brie? What do you see as some of the biggest changes in the industry? Do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think there's been a lot. I mean, COVID definitely was the impetus to make us change in certain areas, but we also have things, with new regulations and legislation that come out. So things like, anything the CFPB comes up with, the new FinCEN regulations that everybody's getting ready to deal with. I mean, it's really a lot for everybody to manage. And I think at the pace at which some of this hits us, I think Kay is exactly right. We have a tendency just to figure it out. We need to get the closing done and then come back and try and clean up the mess later. And I think that's where we can really help, is that people get so busy, working in their business, they don't have an opportunity to work on it and sort of think those things through and be proactive. So, we really want to help companies navigate those changes in the most profitable and compliant way that they can. So I think between the technology change from COVID with the RON and just the way software systems are being utilized and networking and things like that, that's a big one. And then again, I think, same thing, CFPB, FinCEN, wire fraud, all of those are big changes in the industry.
I really like what you said about work. They're so busy working in it, they don't have time to work on it. So you can get so immersed in the moment that sometimes you've got to kind of step out and look again at the big picture and kind of reassess, everything that's going on in that business operation and give it a second look. So I thought that was a good insight. Kay, is there anything you want to add? Anything you want to add before we look at the next?
No, I think, there just a little bit. But again, working in and not on. And I think that's indicative of most title agencies. Most owner, operator, managers are actually, producing. They're in the day to day. And a lot of times, they'll bring Brie and I in to do an assessment, and we just have the ability, we have the luxury of not having to be in the weeds, where we can be back a little bit. And a lot of times the things that we observe and suggest and recommend for them are probably things they would end up with eventually, or they would realize. But again, being in it so deep in those weeds, you can't really see it. And it's, it's helpful to be able to provide those insights, and then allow the agency owner to decide, yeah, that's great, or, we want to tackle that later, or whatever it is.
Agreed. I think it's so valuable to have that knowledgeable but kind of objective third-party perspective, that can sometimes see things that we don't see our own shadow sometimes, right? We don't see the other things that we could be doing that would make our business or life that much better. So that's great.
Absolutely.
Brie, let me ask you, what do you see as the biggest challenges in the industry?
I think a lot of what we just talked about, lends to the challenges in the industry, the change in the technology and regulations and things like that. And obviously, I think one of the big ones that keeps most people up at night, most owner operators, is wire fraud. I mean, that is just evolving so quickly, so fast. And you feel like every time, we come up with a solution or a fix to an issue, there's something else out there that's, that they've gone one step further now. And so it's hard. I mean, I remember I was a closer and sitting at the table, and our big thing was way back in the day was when electronic deposits of checks just started. So you could take a picture of your phone or your check, deposit it on your phone. And so our, it was okay, well, if we've given you a check, you've gotten a check, I can't go back and wire it because maybe now you've already taken a picture of it and deposited, and it's little things like that to now all of a sudden we've got people impersonating sellers and buyers and wires going everywhere. And so it's, really trying to keep up with things like that because in most instances, you have one wire fraud and a company is going to be out of business. So it's hard. It's definitely a big challenge right now.
Right, agreed.
Yeah.
It's still kind of a problem we're trying to solve, right? I don't know that there's a clear or easy answer, right? We're doing a lot of putting protections in place and, cybersecurity insurance, and making sure you are protected on, on all the different levels that you can be to be proactive. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that continues to unfold. Kay, do you have anything you want to add about what you have seen as some challenges in the industry?
Yeah, I think it's definitely evolving, and that's one of the biggest, the hardest parts, right? The other hard part is getting the frontline people to figure out how to adapt, work it into the workflow, right? It's one thing for, again, management, ownership, whatever that level is, to decide, hey, this is a tool that we need to use, but it's something different to be sitting at the closer seat and, okay, now how do I do it, right? How do I work that into my workflow? How does that look for me? And as closers, escrow officers, processors, whatever term you want to use, sometimes that's a challenge to actually identify that. And again, it just goes back to Brie and I had both sat that seat. And so, we can sit with that escrow officer or that closer and say, look, here's how I would do it, right? Here's the point that I would do these steps. And, how does that look? How does that feel? Does that work? And I think it's that implementation that sometimes can be a huge hurdle. You can have all the protections in place that you want. If your people aren't using them, it's not going to matter. So you have to remember sometimes somebody has to sit right there and say, hang on, do this here and here, right? This click, that click, do this. And how does that feel? And see if you can get that adoption that way.
It does take a little bit to learn those new processes and to get on board with, again, whether it's a software change, procedural change, whatever that may be. So it sounds like you all have learned a good bit about having that good bedside manner and helping to hold the hands, through the process, hopefully to make it as painless as possible.
Yeah.
All right, so we've talked about the challenges, but let's look at the positive side of things. What do you find as the biggest rewards, Brie?
Biggest rewards for me in this industry definitely are the people. It's helping people. I love being able to sit down and listen to somebody say, oh, here's my problem, or just listening to them sort of complain or vent about their daily job and being able to say, but I can help you with that. I can fix it. I can make it better. I love that. That's definitely for me, is one of the biggest things, is when I can find either a process or a piece of technology or something like that that can make their lives easier. For me, that's the most rewarding. It's a huge win when I see people happier with what they're doing. Okay, what about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's solving problems. Brie and I like to joke that we're helpaholics, right? We see a problem, we can't help but, we have to help. And sometimes it's easy solutions, again, that they might likely have figured out on their own, but it's being able to have the time to sit there and listen to the complaints, listen to the observations, listen to just the banter. and be able to say, again, I'm not in the weeds, I'm not processing files, I'm not getting yelled at by a realtor, right? But I can hear the pattern, I can hear the commonality. Here's a solution for that. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's a little bit more multifaceted, and we have to sort of have a plan of attack to go after it. But one of the best things is when somebody says, to either Brie or myself, we couldn't have done this without you. And that's awesome. And it's probably a little bit of an overstatement. My guess is you probably would have gotten there eventually, but hopefully we made it a little quicker and easier for you.
That's great. I love that. Helpaholic. If you're going to be an aholic, that's a good one to be. That's great. Okay, the big conversation these days is around AI. And we know it's not going away, but how do we think AI is going to affect the title industry? What do you see coming down the pike? Brie, anything?
Yeah, it's definitely here to stay. And I think as AI continues to change and grow, it's going to continue to work its way into our daily processes more and more. And I think the biggest thing, I think everybody's concerned that it's going to replace me. It's going to replace the title officer. It's going to replace me, the escrow officer. They'll be able to ask questions and I won't have to be here. And I don't think that's the case. I think if we look at it the right way, I think we can leverage it to help with some of the tedious, repeatable stuff that we have to do on a daily basis. So that takes it off the plate. So then again, the more detailed, complex issues that require some real thought process and, those years of experience, then we can focus on those and really, put our time where it needs to be, as opposed to, clicking a button all the time to order a CPL. We can get AI to do that for us. So I think it's really, thinking, what can I do that's repeatable and tedious that I can get off my plate and give to AI so that I can work easier and take care of the more complicated things without having to rush or worry.
Great,
yeah.
Great insight.
I think the thing too is, this industry has a tendency to, resist change, right? It digs its heels in. It's, by gosh, we're not going to do this. And those that do that, I think, are going to be at a distinct disadvantage because it's happening whether you like it or not. Definitely. As simple as when you're typing an email in Outlook and it proposes to finish your sentence for you. That's AI, guys.
Yes.
That simple thing, that predictive text, that's AI. And so it's there. And I think if you ignore it or stick your head in the sand, it's happening, and you're better off acknowledging it. Number one. Number two, putting some guardrails around it, right? Mm-hmm. You got to make sure that people aren't just uploading a contract into ChatGPT. That sounds, crazy, but it's happening. So, rather than fight it and, dig your heels in about it, you need to put some guardrails around it. So if your people are using it, if you're using it to, I've done it where I've typed an email that I know is just a word vomit. It's not concise. It doesn't sound good. Right. And I put it into the one I use is Claude, but I put it into Claude and I'm like, can you make this sound more precise for me? And they spit it back out. Do I like everything it spits out? No, but does it help? 100%. And I would have sat here and labored over it for, 30 minutes. Right. So it can be used, and it can be, and you're better off having people learn how to use it effectively.
Agreed.
And when they can and when they can't.
Right. So I like what you said about having good guardrails and good boundaries around it. And so I still think as the industry, we're learning what that means. And that really is going to be for each company or firm to make those decisions around, where they can embrace the changes with AI and then where they need to use caution or discipline or whatever that would be. So it's not going away. So we might as well embrace it and be ready to ride the wave of the future for sure.
Absolutely.
My last question today to both of you is really, what is the most important lesson you've learned in your career? What would you have to say to that, Brie?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think in title, one of the biggest things that I've learned is nothing is permanent. Everything changes, and you have to be able to give yourself a little grace and your clients a little grace and your staff a little grace, when these changes come up because, you know, we're going a million miles an hour a day and just feels like nothing is easy anymore and everybody is so busy. And so you've got to give yourself a little grace. We find that, you know, when we're training on new software, I mean, you have muscle memory developed over where you go to click a button to print a HUD in one system, and now you've moved into another and you're like, well, this is so hard. No, you've done that for 10 years, so you don't have to think about it. You got to give yourself a little grace with the change and understand it's going to take you a little bit of, you know, a little time to get comfortable with whatever, you know, the new thing is. And so, you know, I think really it's just treating the change with grace and treating yourself with a little grace as well.
Good insight. How about you, Kay? What's your biggest life lesson in the industry so far?
Oh, there's so many. But I think one that's it's become more prevalent in the last several years. I mean, it's simple, but it's just honesty, right? It's a skill to be able to say to someone, I don't know the answer to that, but I know who does. Give me 30 minutes and then call them back in 15, right? You have to be able to do that without undermining their confidence in you or your confidence in yourself. And especially with the way technologies and regulations, to, you know, to Brie's point earlier, that as fast as those things are changing, you can't possibly, I shouldn't say you can't possibly, it's going to be really hard for everybody to be up 100% on everything all the time. And so I think in this industry, you know, I think everybody that's in it will, you know, we don't forgive people that try to lie to us easily. In fact, we don't ever forgive it, right? You're better off saying, I don't know, but I know who does. I'll be right back, right? And then over delivering on that promise. That will get you farther than trying to finesse your way through it every time.
Yeah. I think so. I really appreciate that, just being transparent. And again, we may not know it all, but we can pull on a tribe, we can pull on our professional networks and try to all help each other. So that's another good lesson, is just that we don't have to go it alone, you know, that we can, you know, pull together our resources and help us all get, you know, to the end of the road, or the closing table, or the task of whatever may be at hand. So,
I like that word actually, Janis, tribe. That's a good word. You know, everybody, if you haven't built it, build it.
Yeah,
because we're out, you need to, and we're out there, you know, and everybody's got, you know, you've got people that you're going to gel with. And so you just need to find that tribe, and then everybody, you know, pull their weight and help out.
Agreed. I think that would be so important too for startups to realize that they're not in it alone, and that you can be maybe the step one in their tribe and helping them to form those networks and what they need to get launched. So, Brie, Kay, anything else you want to add before we wrap it up today from either one of you?
I don't think so. Again, just thanks for the opportunity to be part of this today and be part of your tribe. We really appreciate it. We love having a great resource when we need help with training or with reconciliations, closings. We love having you and the team to rely on. So, you know, again, to Kay's point, it's all about the tribe. You know, our famous line is, I don't know, but I got a guy. So we appreciate you being our guy.
Yeah. Well, much appreciated. Again, I do want to thank you both for being here. And I just want to remind everyone of all the different services that you provide and the different levels and layers of consulting that you can offer to anyone in need. And again, if you're interested in working with Kay and Brie directly, you see their contact information here. Again, just a reminder that if you need training on the fundamentals of the closing process, we can assist with that. Again, we invite you to follow us on any of the social media platforms. And again, a reminder of some of the different training services that we can offer. And again, we're also happy to customize curriculum to fit whatever your firm or business needs may be. And again, we just want to thank you for your time today. So good luck to you. Hey, Brie and Title Insurance Consultants, I hope you have an excellent 2025 ahead of you.
Thank you. You as well.
Happy holidays.
Same to you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.